I'm Dr. Pete Economo, the East Coast psychologist.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin, the West Coast psychologist.
And this is When East
Meets West. Pete, we are back for season 2 of When East Meets West. Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Hi.
Needed the break.
I certainly did.
I did, yeah.
Maybe our listeners did too.
I know that they did, because I feel like that everybody needs a break right now.
Yeah, everybody needs a break. And, we made it to 2021. We've got a new administration. There is a shifting of things happening, even though obviously we're still struggling quite a bit, of course, with the pandemic. And so today, because of that, we actually want to talk about change. We've done 2 episodes on acceptance back in season 1. And, we wanted to make sure that we talked about change is, the other side of this really commom dialectic, acceptance and change.
People are petrified of change. It's a strong word, but I think it's true. Like there's this belief that many of us do not accept and or like change. What's that about?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking as soon as you said that, I'm like, that's true. And people also desperately want it at the same time, so there's like such a dichotomy. I think, right. That I think that the reason people don't like it while they want it at the same time is because change is inherently uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, because in light of 2021 and the shift of a presidential administration, I think what we're saying is that there was a group, about 58 million or 50% or 51 or 2% of the American population.
70. You mean who voted for Trump?
Oh, yeah. Was it that high? I forget.
70. So it was 74 million.
74 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like 50, whatever, 50, a little over 50%, right? Wanting change. But then the other, it's important to be mindful that there was another group that really didn't want change. And inevitably it's because you don't know what you're going to get in a way. I think that's part of why people have such angst around change, is because it's unknown.
Right. And well, I agree with that 100%. I also think it's just because the actual process of changing, of growth, is in and of itself painful and uncomfortable. Like I often make the joke with patients, obviously, for our non-friends listeners that don't know me personally, I'm extremely short. I'm a very petite person. And so I make the joke to people, I'll say, I did experience growing pains as a child. Might not look like it.
Like that word, yeah.
I might not look like it, but I did. And I have such a vivid memory of like my shins really like hurting in the night. And when I was probably like 7 or something, and I said it's because growth is literally painful. Change is literally painful. And, especially we've talked about this on the podcast before, it's very, very American cultural thing to like want the change without the discomfort.
Yes.
It's like, let's just get to it. Let's feel good.
What do people do, right? They use substances. I think social media is a big piece of the avoidance right now, because you can just get into this rabbit hole of scrolling, which is a deflection and it's a distraction technique that takes away from some of the pain that we're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so I think, of course, sorry, everyone listening, of course, acceptance is still part of the conversation here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that in order to change, and we want things to change, it also requires first accepting what's going on. And I think that's so relevant to what's happening right now that, I've been having conversations with patients a lot lately where, like in this energy of shifting, I've like people, especially like some people are getting vaccinated. I've had a lot of people say to me, yeah, I wanted to start like planning a trip and like, I want to start, and I'll say, like, I want us to connect with this energy of change. And I want us to also be where we're at.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think like that's such a hard thing. Have you been experiencing that too? Like, I don't know, not just clinically, but maybe like people in your life. Is anybody sort of having trouble sort of, walking that middle path here?
Yeah, well, and middle path is something that we teach and we've talked about a lot here. So that's where clinically we would come in, and certainly that's where East meets West. Because
there we go.
hey, good title.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, because the idea is this behavioral change that we would study in Western behavioral science links this idea of middle path, which is an Eastern philosophical principle, and one that says that really nothing's black and white. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I often do in session is, or just with teams I'm working with, is nickels work good for this. And I'll be
Mm.
like, how many sides to this coin? And everyone's like, two. It's two sides to a coin because
Mm-hmm.
you flip it.
Mm-hmm.
It's heads and tail.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I'll stand it up along the thick side of the nickel and be like, nope, gotcha. There's three.
And then you drop the mic and walk out.
Hey, that's it. And that's middle path. How do we find that? How do we find this idea that like nothing is one or the other, frankly? And that's part of what's been going on in our other episodes in season 1 about
Mm-hmm.
polarization,
Mm-hmm.
this idea that it's not just Republican, Democrat, black and white, righty or
No.
lefty, and I think that that's really a part of change, is us having to rewrite this narrative that it's not an us and them. And this is where I can get very
Correct.
preachy. So stop
No,
me, Dr.
no,
Rubin.
no, I don't think you're getting preachy. I think that's the point, is like, if we want change, and whatever it is, it could be
Yeah.
change on a micro level, right? Just with yourself, right? It
Hmm.
could be change on a macro level, like systemically, right? In our political system and climate, the world. I mean, we get really macro, really big here. If we want change, we have to be willing to let go of righteousness. We have
Yes.
to let go of black and white thinking. We have to cultivate curiosity, and this, and said it once, I'll say it a million more times here, a willingness to step into discomfort, because it
Yeah.
comes back, like, there's no change, there's no growth, there's no evolution without being uncomfortable. And I think as humans, it's just like that is forever just such a hard thing to accept,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I,
know?
I mean, I like change. So
Yeah. Well,
and
because you're practiced with being uncomfortable, like you've seen the other side, right? But
yeah,
I'll say, 'cause I know you very well, you don't enjoy being uncomfortable, right?
no,
You're like, just like, yeah, but I'm willing to do it because it's aligned with my values, and I know that
exactly.
it's worth, like, what comes through, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think listeners could practice small aspects of change. So things
Hmm.
like just rearrange a room or like rearrange a shelf.
Sure, sure,
Like those are
sure.
really
Yeah,
small, accessible things that we can practice with, because all of this is about practice,
yeah.
right? We don't just open up, like we don't just sit on a cushion and meditate and all of a sudden
Hmm.
everything's
Nope.
better. We don't just go to one therapy session, all of a sudden life is more clear, and so
Unfortunately, it's not
that'd be
magic as I like.
nice. I
It
Yeah.
well, it'd be very boring, honestly. I gotta be.
Well, I would
Well,
find something to fill the time with. I mean, you
just
know,
like watch a lot of good shows, and just
yeah, yeah. We could talk about those in a different episode, maybe.
yeah,
We'll
we
get
we
some. There's
could.
been some really good ones. I mean,
There has. Well,
the whole
no, I like.
streaming thing.
We really could do another episode on that.
We sure. Well, we probably should.
We probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that, Pete, because yeah, it's starting small, like, to connect with not just what feels good in terms of the accomplishment of things being different. Though I think what you're highlighting here is, like, when you start small, if it's like rearranging a shelf, for example, it's like the practice to, like, do something that takes effort, right? Like,
Yes.
I think I also like to joke in therapy with people. I'll say, like, look, I was like,
You
I'm a
joke in
CBT.
therapy?
I joke in therapy.
We do. I know.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I joke in therapy. I'll say to people all the time, I'm like, look, I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. I'm like, I freaking love change. Why do you think I became a CBT therapist? Like, I
Yeah.
like to change. Like, that's why I got into this work. I want to help people change their lives.
Yes.
And in order for that to happen, it's gonna take, again, back to acceptance, right? Like,
Yeah.
it requires slowing down, it requires practice, it requires willingness here. I feel like I'm you know beating a dead horse here with this, but
No,
it's like, I feel like it can't be said enough times, kind of,
it can't. Well, and I'll just bring in some of the Eastern stuff. So I
Yeah,
think
please, yeah.
if the biggest teaching within Buddhism of change is impermanence,
Mm,
this idea that nothing is forever.
mhm,
So we don't, and I think that's part of why I embrace change,
mhm,
because one of the main like fundamental teachings is that nothing is forever.
right.
And we know that in Western behaviorism, it's about like this emotion that we're trying to escape won't last forever.
Mhm,
This, whatever, fill in the blank, that nothing is forever. And
mhm.
that's acceptance.
Yes.
but what we're talking about now is is that
it's well, they're inherently linked, right?
They're inherently linked. So what I was just thinking is like, we're almost, when we say change, we're really thinking about the behavioral, like we're actually like measuring the behavior, because yes, acceptance is a behavior as well.
Sure.
It's just less tangible.
Yeah, because it's as we've said before, it's covert. You can't see it. You're doing inside your body, though. Overt change is something. Yeah, we
just
can
redecorating my shelf, or
or like not, not raising your voice with your partner as much, right, or something like that.
Going to the gym to lose 10 pounds, or some change that I'm trying, that I'm trying to commit to. So impermanence is this idea that like nothing's forever. So we embrace that, and then like a second piece I would add is that in some of the like Buddhist teachings, it's about insight. Right, that's like this whole idea of like nirvana or enlightenment. It's like the fourth noble truth. But what the teaching there with insight is that nothing is inherently fixed.
Say more about that, because I mean I'm like, I was gonna say I'm liking the vibes of where this is going, but I can imagine people listening going like,
what the
what? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So nothing is inherently fixed. So one thing I think about a lot in my own sitting is like all of these accolades that we work towards and strive for.
Yeah.
Okay, like a doctorate, for example. Let's throw that out there, right? Like I think 3% of the population get a doctorate. So maybe I'm wrong, but who cares? They used to be like that. So that actually doesn't matter. It's not fixed, because when I die, nothing happens with my doctorate.
Right. Yes.
When I'm no longer here.
Yep.
Like, so all of that suffering that I put in to that degree, which there was a lot. We should do an episode on that.
Just us complaining about how hard it was to become a psychologist.
Everyone would love that episode.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Almost as good as our last one. We were trying to review and set goals for this year. But hey.
Exactly. They were like, I'm sure we lost some listeners from that one.
Yeah,
anyway,
well, at least my mom is still there. But okay, go ahead. So yeah, nothing is inherently fixed. And so whatever we've earned, or even like, let's just say like a parenting title, right? Because I think sometimes people think their children are their legacy, for example.
Yes.
That's why they put so much anxiety into parenting, for example. And then you could be the best parent in the world and your kids hate you. Or, whatever, like they, and I don't mean light of this, but like, or they develop some severe pathology or a substance use disorder, or they become the president. Like, who knows what that path means? But the idea of that nothing is inherently fixed is this idea of like gaining insight into that allows for really stepping into change.
Yeah, it's such
a did I clarify?
You did. No, it's no, you did. I think it's such an important point. It's like it's back to like you're gonna laugh when I say this. It's like nothing's perfect, right?
That's
like
right.
when I say like, and what's so hard about being a person is our wiring makes us continue to buy into this illusion that we can fix things, we can make things perfect, we can achieve like a life without difficulty or struggle or discomfort. And I think what you're really highlighting is the insight into radically accepting that that's not possible. And then the impermanence is like, and everything is always changing.
Everything.
And even if we don't like it, even if we think we're resisting it, we're not, because every moment is fresh. Something. I mean, I always think of like I think I want to say like I learned it from you, Pete, at some point. I think it's a Buddhist teaching, correct me if I'm wrong, of like the idea of like if you go look at the ocean, like it's never the same ocean. Like it's right. Isn't there some saying around that? Like it's never the same place twice. Like you go to it, or the river, or whatever it is. It's like it's some the molecule. It's and it's like the molecules, everything. It's literally different. Like it's never. Nothing's ever the same, ever.
Right. Well, waves come in, waves go out, type of thing. So the
or
waves
even our bodies, like we're constant. Our cells are constantly shedding.
Everything's changing, and
everything's changing.
And what is your body? And that's where this gets to a higher level of philosophy of like, what is it anyway? And that's what I want listeners, because for me, that's where this bridge occurs between East and West of like, what's your purpose? We talk about values.
Yes.
But what is all the suffering about? And that's really what I try and help people put meaning to, because we are going to suffer, because that's the first noble truth.
Yep.
Everyone does. I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't. Have you?
No, no. I think that's what I say. It's
Well,
like
rich people don't suffer though, Nikki.
no, money buys happiness. That's
Well,
the joke.
yeah,
It's not true, guys.
it's
That's
not true.
yeah, not true.
Because people think that's, I think that's where the general
That's
population believe
what
that that's the case.
well, that goes back to what you just said though. It's like nothing is fixed. It's like there's always something that we could slap a label on and say, well, they fixed it. They fixed it with money. They
Yeah,
fixed it with fame. They fixed it with getting married. They
yeah,
fixed it with, living in like this kind of house or
yeah.
whatever, right? And it's like, no, like
No,
it
it all
doesn't.
followed them. Like that's why John
Mm.
Kabat-Zinn, one of his first books, Wherever You Go, There You Are.
Yeah, my
You know,
favorite title of a book ever.
it really is. It's like
Yeah,
because it's the best. It really encompasses mindfulness in the work that we're doing in the probably
yeah.
most accurate way.
Hmm.
Because no matter how far, like how hard we try and escape, no matter how much money we try and throw at it, right? No matter what we try and do in that regard, no matter we're still there.
Hmm.
We're still with ourselves. So our personality, our story about ourselves, our story about our suffering,
Hmm.
that follows us.
Hmm.
And so that's why within like Zen tradition, we spend the time on the cushion. We do it in isolation. We
Hmm.
do it in quiet,
Hmm.
because in that is where it's loud. And that's the insight piece, right? That's
Hmm.
the insight that we gain so that we can really step into the change that nothing is inherently fixed.
Well, and then I think what I would add, or not add, but I don't know what I'm taking from this. It's like when we're able to do that, then we can be free. Like then
Yes.
we can feel freedom
I
because
like that. I
oh,
got the
thank
chills,
you.
I think.
Oh, oh wow. My
I
words are
think.
powerful.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
it's also very cold on the East Coast right now, so you might not be
Uh,
cold for that. You might be cold. That's maybe where the chills are coming from. But yeah, and I think that for me, it's like I remember just again, I don't remember like exactly when in my own development that happened, but I remember the experience of when I finally connected with that when you stop fighting the change, when you
yeah,
start accepting it, when you recognize the impermanence, that it's because I was thinking as you were talking, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are becoming either hopeless in hearing that wherever you go there you are, that you carry all that, or feeling afraid of that. But
yeah.
it's like no, when you really make space for that, there's such a liberating
It's
feeling.
freeing.
It's such a
Yeah,
it's such a freedom, because it's like it's back to like, and here all roads lead to mindfulness. It's like
yeah.
because we're only in this moment. Like that's it.
Yeah, and I think people believe that if they just accept mediocrity or like something that's not pleasant, that then they are like succumbing
That
to failure.
well, that means because then that's where it's the belief of like if I accept, then I can't change. And
That's
what
right.
we're really saying is like, no, no, those things go together.
That's right.
They're like,
Once you accept, you can commit better to change with better insight. I mean, I feel like that is really the Buddhist teaching there about
hmm,
the that nothing's fixed, is that we have to have insight into that. You have to accept that
yes, yes.
before you can actually take the step of change.
Well, right, because if you don't have the insight, you're going to continue to buy into the fairy tale that there's a way out of suffering. There's a
Right.
way out of pain. It's like, no, there's not. This is built into this. I mean, obviously, this is where we could cross into spiritual meaning of things. It's like,
Yeah.
like because that is, you know, some believe that's why we're here, is to learn to,
Yeah.
and as we, to link it back to how we started this episode, is that we can't learn, we can't grow without discomfort, right? Without being uncomfortable.
Might we share an example of our own change? Dare
I mean,
dare dare we?
yeah, sure. I mean, I'm like, I'm just there's like so many things I've had to
I
work on
know.
for myself, and worked on and continue to work on. I'm trying to 'cause I'm on the spot a little. I'm trying to think on what
Well, because
I'm
so much for our New Year's resolution of
yeah, right. Well, mine, but yours, not
yours,
mine.
mine.
I was,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
My
yeah.
New Year's resolution of
Yes,
preparation.
yes.
I
Well, do
just
you have?
thought about. I
Yeah,
just
tell
thought
me.
about it, and I thought about the question. I don't necessarily have an answer, so maybe that's like a
Mhm.
cliffhanger we have for another
Mm.
episode. Because
Mhm.
again, I think for me right now, I'm thinking about like how much do I share versus not sharing. But I guess an easy change thing for me was my first step to meditate.
Mm. Mhm.
Easy story to tell, not process.
Right.
Because so what I'll say is like this was very uncomfortable. I was, I started to find it during like competition. I was
Mhm.
like looking for something to calm, and so working with athletes now, like I recognize that some of us need to listen to like Rocky or like heavy metal to get going, and other people
Sure.
need like Enigma, which
Right.
like, and I needed more like I needed like chill, liquid mind
Yeah. Yeah.
music
Uh-huh.
because I got so revved up myself.
Mhm.
And so I started to find like Tibetan literature and started to read some of that. Anyway, I found my way to my, current teacher, and getting there was hard because it was like the idea of sitting for like an hour
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh wait, how am I going to stay in this place for an hour? Yeah. And so I think that was like the best example of change, but one that I'm so thankful that I did, um, and now has had a tremendous impact on my life. And it took that discomfort of like, I remember some of the first times sitting where I was like, I can't wait to get out of here.
Of
I
course,
would
of course.
find the clock somewhere in the Zendo to see like what it would take to get out. Yeah,
It's like that itchy feeling, it's
totally.
like you're coming out of your skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and I'll follow, I mean, it's not unrelated. My example of change, which I feel very comfortable sharing because it's something I'm open with. It's like mine has been really, it, so I was saying about the freedom. It's like this letting go of trying to problem solve what's going to happen,
Yeah.
which is obviously a common thing all humans do. And I definitely, was in the category of people that really held tight to that, especially when I was younger or like in my 20s. And it's something that I, I've really worked on, and mindful practice has been
Hmm.
an essential component of that. Though I will say that like that's what's connected me with this fun, like that sense of freedom,
Yeah.
is being able to let go of that.
Yeah.
So look, I think for our listeners, I want everyone to just see if they can start from a place of, and here's the dialectic coming,
Our
beginning to,
first one for
yeah,
2021.
right, woo! Beginning to practice accepting that change is a part of our lives. It's constant. And the more space that we make for that, the more freedom you open up for yourself. This has been When East Meets West. I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin.
And I'm Dr. Pete Economo. Be present, be brave. This has been When East Meets West. All material is based on opinion and educational training of Drs. Pete Economo and Nikki Rubin.
Content is for informational and educational purposes only.